Here in Bratislava, in Budapest, and so on. You see the boats here. That's the kind on the right hand side. This is the kind of boat here. People come from, many Americans come here and they make a tour cruise about 10 days along the Danube. The church on the left hand side, this huge building, was dedicated to Emperor Francis Joseph. And as he was in power already 50 years, which is in the year 1898, they dedicated to him the church. That's why it's called the Anniversary Church, or the St. Francis from Assisi Church. Now, you all know Queen Elizabeth, right? We had someone who ruled almost as long as Queen Elizabeth in England. His name is Francis Joseph, the man to whom this church was dedicated. This young man at the age of 18 came to power, 1848, and he ruled all into 1916, excuse me. He died, in 1916. At the age of 86, he ruled 68 years long. And he had a very good-looking wife. Her name was Elizabeth, cozy name Sissy. You are going to be seeing lots, a good-looking lady with long black hair. So when you like the film painting, Sissy's also all over the place. There are many films about her, books about her, and she was a German princess married to Francis Joseph. They had 4 children, and their son should have been the next Emperor of Austria, 3 girls and a boy. And the boy, Rudolf, committed suicide at the age of 31, which is a big tragedy. And they had to try to find a new successor to the throne, and Emperor Francis Joseph, who was very upset, he chose his nephew, and his nephew's name is Franz Ferdinand. And Franz Ferdinand was shot down in Sarajevo in 1914. So he was already 84 years old. His son had died, his nephew had died, and he went to war together with the Germans to take revenge on the assassination, with the result that the Germans and the Austrians lost the war, and with that the empire was finished. Okay? And since then we have a republic. And the whole big empire of over 50 million inhabitants was spread up into countries. And we had over 630 years of this dynasty ruling here, and then it was finished. So that's why, it's a very big cut. And now it's in fashion, I don't know why, but there is a Sissy, the good-looking wife of Francis Joseph. There are films about her in Netflix. So many American women mostly love the stories of her because she was very good-looking and unhappy. I would say many people compare her a little bit, if you remember Lady Diana Spencer, right? The first wife of King Charles. So she was not so blonde, right? She had dark hair. But she was also like a beauty icon, and she was unhappy, and she died in a very tragical way. And so it's kind of similar, it pushes all the time your emotional feelings, yeah? She was stabbed in her heart, Sissy, herself, and she was killed at the age of 61, approaching a boat which she would take to come back from a trip. So before World War I, there are lots of tragical events taking place in the privately within the family. So we are going to be driving up again. We're going to be seeing Johann Strauss' house. Johann Strauss married 3 times. He married first an older woman who was a very well-known actress. She opened the doors for his career. Then she died. Then I think about 3 months later, he married a much younger woman. This younger woman did not like him, and he left her. She left him, and he was divorced. But we were here in a Catholic country. If you're divorced, you cannot marry again. And he fell in love with another lady, And they went, both of them, to Germany, where you could be turned to be a Protestant. And so he converted to get married to his third wife, Adela, is her name. And with her he was very happy. She was not too young, not too old. Right? Now, this area here is also quite well known because of something else. Here we had a very big Jewish community until World War II, and many immigrants who came here in the 19th century to work in the city, they lived here in this place. Of course, many of them were assassinated, as you all know, but nowadays we have again a very small community. We had in 19th century, the city had 2 million inhabitants and 200,000 Jews lived in the city of Vienna, and now we have about 18,000. And one of the few, there is, if you take a look to the left, there is a side street. You're not going to be having the opportunity of seeing too much. There are some columns standing at the place where there had been one of the biggest synagogues which was destroyed by the Nazis. You see the columns on the left? Yeah. So this is a reminder that this was, there was synagogue. There were many synagogues that were burned down. People were killed. We all know this story, right? Austria was occupied by Hitler in 1938, and all up to the end of World War II, where the war was then finished, ended. We had this regime, as you know. We are driving back to the downtown area, and we're going to be crossing once again over the Danube Canal. We already crossed it to go to the Danube before. And one of the first observatories we had is the building on the left-hand side with the white dome. You can open it. Yeah? You can observe the stars. The building is appropriately called the Urania. And it's still out of the times of the empire, which was called the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which collapsed in 1918. And when it's warm, you have to use your fantasy for that. On the right-hand side, floating in the water, you're going to be seeing a floating swimming pool as we cross over and we pass the red lights. It's just on top of the water, on the right-hand side. So if you are on the left, perhaps, I don't know how, but you have to pay attention to see. In the summertime, it's quite crowded. Take a look, right-hand side now. There's a swimming pool, you see? We are entering once again the Ringstrasse, this main avenue where the opera was, where the parliament was, where the city hall was, all of that. That's the same avenue. And coming up next, left-hand side, this huge grey building used to be the Ministry of War Affairs. Everything which had to do with war was decided here within this building. If you take a look at the building, you can even see some heads of soldiers on top of the windows. And on the left-hand side, sitting on a horse, we have a gentleman. His name is Field Marshal Radetzky. Another piece of music dedicated to this man who lived in the 1800s. And if you know the march, which is you know that, right? Dedicated to this man, and I'm sure that if today you go to the concert, you're going to be able to listen to that piece, and also to Blue Danube, because they are, of course, these are masterpieces. They are very famous, very important, and you can always, in a concert, you're going to be able to listen to these two and other things, of course. The two brick buildings here on the left, the one on the left, precisely the one here on the left, this is the Museum of Applied Arts. It's a museum, let's say, where you don't see any paintings, but more design, but out of different centuries, so it's not only modern design. So now, as we continue, we're going to be driving up to the opera again.